with the state, the state capture reports, etc., etc. What do you believe, apart from getting down to the nitty gritty and all the hard facts about how the unrest had happened, who were the kingpins behind it, who orchestrated this horrendous act in our country, etc. Are we ever going to see those people brought to justice? It's wonderful to get to hear, who the masterminds were. But do you think that they will be brought to justice? Will they be held accountable?
Well, for a constitutional democracy like our own, to work and to be effective, we need to see people being held to account and being brought to justice, as you had put it. I think that we have different institutions with different mandates and different responsibilities that need to work together, work independently to be able to bring that about. And what I mean by that is that, of course, as the South African Human Rights Commission, we do not have prosecutorial powers. So, we do not work in the criminal domain and investigate matters, for the purpose of holding, finally sending someone to prison. However, it's up to other institutions, like, for example, the National Prosecuting Authority, where they deem fit to then initiate their own investigations. It's similar to, as you had mentioned, the Zondo Commission and the reports that are coming out. There too, there's a responsibility on all the various institutions and bodies that have been established to specifically do their work and look into that information and take the necessary action that they deem fit. Where the South African Human Rights Commission fits into the grander scheme of things is that during that particular period in July, not only did we see innumerable human rights being violated, but there's also a context in terms of the failure of human rights to be upheld, specifically socioeconomic rights, that actually led to a situation where people deemed it fit for them to take to the streets, loot, and participate in the violence that we saw during that particular period.
So, what have we learned more about the July unrest? Lots and lots of information has come forth, and we continue reading and trying to understand the horror of those few days. But what more have we learned up to now?
Look, I think for finality on that one, and I really do not want to put the Commission in a position whereby it seems that we've made up our minds about what we've heard thus far and what written evidence we've received. But I think what is blatantly obvious is that the state has a role to play in alleviating the socioeconomic disparities that we see within South Africa, and that we need to make real the rights that we have in the Constitution. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing that we also have to take into account is that we need to have a society that believes and understands the institution, and that people cannot be led astray because they feel, that they need to protect a particular political leader or set of political leaders. But second to that also is that we need to have a deeper understanding of what our rights are and what the Constitution actually states, so that we do not have a situation whereby people take action into their own hands and inevitably cause huge scale damage. As you're aware, we're hearing from civil society, we're hearing from members of the community that were on the ground and experienced those days, as well as government officials that are responsible for whether it be state security, whether it be policing, and everyone else that has a role to play. We even went to the extent of speaking to the Minister of Trade and Industry, as an example, to understand, is our economy geared towards alleviating poverty and creating a little more equality? So there's many stakeholders that we're bringing to the table to understand, and today we're going to hear from academics. We're also going to hear from people that would be able to give us insights into what the social media chatter about during that particular period. What was the source of it? Was it random folk that decided to go out and participate in unrest? Or was it a situation of, as has been suggested before, that this was orchestrated and that there was other insidious goals at hand?
Okay, my comment, and that's just my personal view, is It was way too large scale. It was way too big for it to have been random. I think it was very well planned and orchestrated, but be that as it may, I might be proven completely wrong. Gershwell, we know that we've got a huge social inequality situation in our country. The poor seem to be getting poorer, the rich getting richer. Unemployment is at unacceptably high levels. Criminality is unbelievably high. What, what should civil society and government be doing, to work together to try and create employment so that we don't see this type of heinous activities playing itself out again? Because a hungry man is an angry man. A hungry man would do anything to put food on the table.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, and I think anyone with any bit of common sense would completely understand and appreciate what you just said there. And I think part of the problem is, there can be long, lengthy debates around what policies need to be implemented to alleviate the socioeconomic inequalities. I mean, we're persistently hearing how South Africa is the most unequal state in the world. As you mentioned, poverty rates are through the roof. We've never had unemployment to this particular extent. And those are all things that, yes, the state, business, as well as civil society need to deal with. But I think at the core of it, what we really need to sit back and think about as a state is how, as a state where we try to, at the very minimum, where there's a massive spend on alleviating poverty, whether it be through housing, whether it be through various social grants and trying to assist people, give them some form of starting point to assist themselves with a difficult financial situation. The issue is we need to give reality to those rights. We were in Alexandra yesterday, as an example, and people live under deplorable conditions with no sanitation, with no access to clean potable water. Housing, you can't even speak of housing where people are living in an informal settlement or let alone in a hostel. And as you had said, if those issues are not addressed, then yes, we are going to see situations like these arise again. And the next time we might not be able to emerge out of it with the opportunity for the South African Human Rights Commission and other entities to still be able to investigate it and look back and say, why did this happen and how do we fix it? It needs to be fixed. What the process is, it needs committed leadership that at least understands that we have these rights and that those rights need to be enforced.
And ironically, Alexandra Township is right across the road from one of the richest suburbs in the country. That, of course, is Sandton. Quite ironical, is it not? What can we expect going forward, Gushwell, as far as when is the SAHRC's work done on these type of reports? When do you say, we've done our bit and you hand over to whichever department that needs to now take up the cudgels and move forward and make things happen?
So in terms of the process, we're wrapping up on the 4th of March, so that's when we, that's the final day that we've scheduled, so that's this Friday. We are bound to hear from some more senior officials from government. As I said today, though, we will be focusing on academics and members of civil society that will be giving input from their particular perspective. I can't give a definitive date at this stage, and in all honesty, there's still a lot of, we still obviously going to hear some oral evidence up until the 4th. We also have reams and reams of written submissions that we've received. So all of that has to be, we have to go through all of that for us to be able to make findings, in turn make recommendations and directives. And obviously the Commission sees this as a priority. We've had 2 legs of this already. This is, by Friday, this would be 5 weeks of oral hearings that we've heard and received. So, in other words, there's still a lot of work to do in being able to put together that report. But I think that what we should understand is that, again, within this constitutional democracy, we have independent Chapter 9 institutions that if they make findings, if they make recommendations, if they make directives, they need to be carried out by the force of law. And if there is a disagreement, if someone feels that, we made an incorrect finding against them, they need to go to court to, on review. You can't simply just ignore it. And even the Constitutional Court, I think, reinforces that position in terms of Chapter 9 institutions. So that is the way forward. Of course, it's not the Commission that will then in turn instruct anyone, say, for example, the NPA or members of the executive to take particular forms of action. Those are independent bodies. They need to take the requisite action. But I think within a functional constitutional democracy, going back to a comment I made at the beginning, is that, of course, this is the easiest, most efficient way of us being able to hold people accountable to the level at which they will, they need to. So not only do people need to, does the Commission have to make particular pronouncements, but I think it's up to other authorities to look at those pronouncements and say, in these instances, we need to investigate further. In these instances, we need to take particular action.
Gushwell Brooks, thank you indeed. The SAHRC spokesperson bringing us up to speed regarding the report on the July unrest. Thank you once again. It is 8:52 a.m. right here on Salam Media.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than